Hello, 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 Crossroads witches and other interesting magical beings. I always say it, I always mean it. I am too excited to be here, and especially today, because we have got a really amazing author who wrote one of the best books I've read in a long time. We have Mark DeCamp joining us, who wrote the book Energy Magick. And I'm going to ask Mark to introduce himself, but I'm going to put a little twist on it, Mark. I want you to
Okay.
describe yourself in 5 words to all of our folks out there.
Okay. 5 words: occult, alchemist, exorcist, rabble rousing, dude.
I love it, Mark. We're already off to a great start. And I actually love that you described yourself as rabble rousing. I know we're going to have a good conversation with that. And I'm going to go through a series of questions. And so everyone knows Mark doesn't know what questions I'm getting ready to ask him. All right. So if it takes him a minute to put it together, give him a little time there. All right, we're going to start. Let's jump in. Energy Magick. What was the spark that inspired you to write this book? Why did you feel energy is the foundation of all magic?
Great question. So I've studied a lot of different magical traditions. Um, and while I've studied all these different things, I've studied everything from, so like I'm a Reiki practitioner, I've studied various forms of energy healing. I've have a history of training with like in Buddhist meditation. I was almost a Hindu monk. Uh, my first magical modality I learned was hoodoo from a candle shop, not far from my house in Chicago. I've been trained. I'm initiated in ceremonial magic. I got myself kicked out of the largest chaos magic group internationally. So I've got a huge breadth of knowledge in different schools of magic, and I tried to figure out like what they all have in common. At the end of the day, I kind of went back to my background as an energy worker and an energy healer, and I realized that at the end of the day, whether you're doing hoodoo, traditional witchcraft. We can argue what traditional witchcraft is all night. That's a different episode. But all the different schools of magic, at the end of the day, have an energetic impact. And it's fascinating. I've literally done energy healing and curse removal from people on an energetic level, and things from like Mexican sorcery to someone who was really, really angry on like a chat room online. They can have literally the same magical effect at the end of the day. And I found this extremely fascinating. So I said, hey, what if I remove the middleman? What if I remove the traditions? What if I figured out, hey, I'm on a desert island and I have to deal with like all these crazy magical situations. What do I do? It's like, okay, I'm not going to build everything out of coconuts. So this isn't Gilligan's Island or anything. I can go back to what I know from energy healing, and I can use energy as my tool set to do pretty much anything with magic. And literally, the book is how to do almost everything with magic just with energy.
I love it. It's one of those things that energy's everywhere. But most people don't realize it until they're knee deep in spell work, wondering why this candle magic isn't working.
Oh, absolutely.
Now, for someone who is brand new to energy work, it can feel a little bit, how do I say it? Like trying to catch smoke in your hands.
Absolutely.
How would you explain energy magic to someone who's just starting out?
Perfect. So I would say that this is always how I start this conversation. I ask someone, have you ever been to a room where someone had an argument and it didn't feel right? And everyone, literally everyone said, yeah, you're right. It feels weird. And I said, that's because the energy of someone's emotions transformed how that room feels. So just because you don't know what magic is or don't know what energy is, you can feel it on a very personal level. And then they'll say, "Oh yeah, when I go into a room that feels weird, or I met someone was kind of creepy." It's like, yes, their energy is different. That's what I'm talking about. And that energy that's literally in people, in places, in materials for magic, the air we breathe, the water we drink, the food we eat, it's everywhere and is everything. And it's very subtle. I mean, but at the same time, energy is very easy to feel. And as such, if I'm looking at all of the different like psychic abilities and magical abilities, the something that I can actually feel with my hands, where I don't have to say, "Oh, did I hear something? That's a delusion. Did I see something? That's a delusion." When you're working with energy directly, it's very, very difficult to have your brain trick you. It's more objective.
That makes complete sense. In your experience, what's the big aha moment that people have when they first start sensing and working with energy, like when they finally get it?
I think the big aha moment, and I'll just do the first exercise from the book real quick. And so, first off, I'll say that energy is everywhere, and the energy is within our bodies. And there's a lot of schools on how that energy functions and flows through the body. One of those, of course, one of the main things is like the chakras. And all a chakra is, it's Sanskrit for wheel, and it just means that there's energy centers, there's wheels of energy swirling around in all of us. And so, as such, there's not just chakras in the body, but also in our feet, in our hands. So the first thing I'll have people do is just like activate their hand chakras and just pump them, just pump their hands, like 10 times, kind of like both sides for a little bit more, just getting a nice feel, loosen things up. And I'll say, imagine that there's energy within your body and all around you. When you put your hands together, rub your hands together, imagine you're concentrating the energy between your palms. And then they'll do it for so long. And then I'll say, okay, go ahead and stop and put your hands very slowly apart and put them very slowly together, but don't let them touch. And you'll feel a pressure, you'll feel this tension. And then go ahead and keep focusing on that tension and focus on that feeling, and the feeling will get more and more intense and stronger. Hands will get warmer. And then I said, go ahead and cup a ball. You can try to visualize just a little bit that there's a ball between your hands of energy, and then take your hand very slowly off and very slowly back on and pet that ball, and you'll feel that energy. And then you just go ahead and take that energy back into yourself. And you can just absorb it in your body, or you just want to, if you have an energy bundle, suck it back in.
Just
So that's a real simple exercise. You can do all sorts of stuff. I mean, if you're shaping energy, you can make objects out of energy. You can make wands out of energy. You can like do sigils, and you can move sigils with energy. I mean, you do all sorts of cool stuff. But energy is very much shaped by intention, attention, and emotion. And knowing that, you can translate that working with energy into any type of magical technique and spell work, because those are things anyone has to do to have, to have effective magic and have it go the way you want. So usually people are working with energy when they're doing magic and they don't realize it, but at the same time, being aware of how energy works and then kind of bringing that back to what you practice, your practice is going to get way stronger for a simple reason. You're saying, oh, wow, I can feel things where I didn't before, or I know this is how this is supposed to feel, or this is what I can do to make this technique stronger. Because if you're not feeling your magic, there's probably a problem. There's one way or another. And some of the reasons we don't feel magic, and I just really, I don't want to go on too much of a tangent, but our emotions are very much shaped to how we do magic. The more you feel, the more you can change, shape, and manipulate. And we live in a crazy world. We live in a world that's very stressful, that can give lots of people anxiety, by the very nature that the internet is, social media is everywhere. Our attention span is like split in ways it's never been in human history. So, as such, our ability to feel, just authentically stop and feel emotions in our body is very different than what it was 5, 10, 15, 100, 1,000 years ago. So the challenge here is to figure out ways to resensitize yourself so that you can feel, not just be emotionally present in your relationships, which is cool, but so you can do magic more effectively.
I know I when I wrote this down, I was thinking on my own personal young witch, when did I have the aha moment and
Mhm.
everything? And I remember I had a little altar on a TV tray, and I had been doing chanting
Mhm. Mhm.
and everything. But what I remember when I was thinking about this was I remember standing there with the feeling, that sense, all that energy. And I was like, I'm doing it. I'm doing
Yeah.
it. I am powerful. Where I just had this when I, like I said, when I wrote the question down and I was thinking, where's my aha moment? I was like, I was standing in front of a TV tray in the corner of my room. I don't remember much of anything other than just that sense of this is real feeling. And it was, you know, surprising on one sense. And then I also remember like sitting back and like, starting like, did I really feel that? Where I start analyzing, I start overthinking. And that is
Mhm.
something I want to see that when we talk about energy work is don't overthink, don't overanalyze. This is very much a Yoda type thing,
Oh,
do not try, do. And it'll happen.
yeah.
And it sounds so simple. And I love the fact that you gave the energy ball exercise, because that was the next question, was a practical application. So we're going to skip that question. Was an energy balls. Um, this is some old school, and I see a lot of our next generation is not learning the foundations, and learning to work with an energy ball is really the best way to start, especially for you witches and interesting magical beings out there who are like, well, where do I start? You just saw Mark do the exercise. If you want a detailed inscription, you can buy the book. All right. Where he goes into some really great. I love the book because it's readable. You didn't try to be fancy. You didn't use any words that I had to go look up, nothing like that. Very conversational, engaging tone. And so I know a lot of magical folk reading is not on their fun to do list. Uh, but this is a book that is easy to read, but more importantly, it's chock full of great information. And that's where I want to sort of flip over to, you had spoke earlier, modern times. Right now with modern times, we have smartphones, we're constantly on deadlines, and we're constantly checking our social media. Makes it so easy to feel disconnected. Do you think it's harder or easier to work with energy in today's world? Two-part question.
Mhm.
And how can we stay grounded when it feels like chaos?
Okay, great question. So I think it's more difficult in the sense that everyone's lives are so hectic. At the same time, I think it's easier because there's more ways to do it. And let me explain. So someone came up to me at a workshop and they said, Mark, I can't meditate. I have horrible problems meditating and I don't get this meditation thing. I said, okay. And I said, there's different ways to meditate. How are you meditating? Like, oh, I'm sitting cross-legged and I'm trying to have my back straight and I'm trying to have my hands relaxed on my knees. I said, well, that's one way to meditate, but you can meditate when you run, when you walk. That's a moving meditation. You can sing, that could be a meditation. You can do mantras or chants. That's another way of meditation. There's a zillion different ways to meditate. It's not about the means, and I said, please don't get caught up on your means of meditation or your technique. Get Think more about what's your purpose and what you're trying to accomplish. If you're trying to accomplish more peace and relaxation, well, that's one thing. If you're try to be more in your body and feel like that body awareness and body centeredness, that's another thing. If you're trying to do meditation to like connect to gods, ancestors, spirits, or whatever, that's another thing. So I really try to instruct people and recommend and kind of offer that, why are you meditating? What's your goal? And then try to find a technique that works so you're not just stuck in like, I'm doing the meditation, so that's one thing I'd offer definitely. Now, what was the second part of that question again? Just so I can stay focused.
How to stay focused in today's world when you feel like chaos is all around you.
Let's see, focus, that's ironic. Um, so I would say one thing is because I feel like our technology is giving everyone ADHD. Now, I say this as someone who does have ADHD diagnosed. I look at people who are undiagnosed, and I was like, wow, you actually read like you have ADHD, but you don't. You're just grew up with technology more. And so what I've noticed is if we can train the mind, and I reference that if like I try to train my mind to find ways to connect more to spirit or to meditate or to make time. And what I mean by that is, if I'm in the shower, I'm imagining that, like that purifying energy or white light is coming through me. And so, like in the shower, I'm doing my purification. When I'm doing my shielding, I have magical jewelry. So what I've done, just to be transparent, is I have created like shields and different types of energies. It would take way too long. It'd literally be a whole different like conversation of what I have just in these two rings. So I've got these tools that I've like created and I've worked with the energy and I've enchanted, and I don't have to do all this work. Now, what I do once a week, I do energetic hygiene where I purify all my tools. I'll do some like more extended ritual. I'll try to center. I'll take out more time, but I try to make everything I do magical. And it's not fancy, it's just I take a shower, I put my jewelry on. I might pray. I might pray to the ancestors and the gods. I try to do that every day. And that doesn't take long. It literally takes me, I put the coffee on or now tea, and I'll make a hot beverage for my ancestors and the gods. I can put the coffee on while I'm doing something else, while I'm checking social media. I offer up a little offering to the gods and ancestors. It takes me 2 minutes to pray. It takes me maybe 10, 15 minutes to shower, probably 20 if I'm going through my song list and I'm feeling myself. So there's simple things that you can do to make your everyday things sacred and live a magical life. And it's better to do a bunch of smaller things. Shoot, it's better to do one small thing that takes 5 minutes a day than do nothing. So the other thing I would say is don't get overwhelmed, don't get stuck in the trap that you have to like do. And I did this for years, and really getting my spiritual practice. Like, oh man, I didn't spend an hour doing ritual every day, or I didn't spend a half hour doing ritual in the morning, a ritual at night, and then 15 minutes at noon and doing my meditation. And I gave myself anxiety, spiritual anxiety, until I figured out, dude, chill. Guess what? The gods aren't going to smite you if you're not being serious enough about your practice, okay? Your practice is for you to connect to yourself, to become a better person, to connect to the universe. There's no spirit over your shoulder unless you've created them or invoked them or evoked them. There's no spirit that's going to like, okay, Mark did not meditate. Mark did not do his good deed for the day. Mark did not feed his familiar in a certain way. Mark did not pray. Mark did not do blah, 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 blah. No one is taking notes. There is no spiritual report card. Okay. So just give yourself some grace. Chill out. And I'm telling myself this as much as I'm telling everyone watching.
I love that you brought this up about the misconception that you have to somehow be doing these big elaborate rituals in order for things to happen, versus the reality of living your life magically. And those are a lot of small things that add up to, the big stuff, the big changes, because it's really about the changes inside of us. And, you have to do it small, bit by bit. And the simplicity of it. and that you talked earlier of meditation, because I was thinking, I just want y'all to know, if you ever see me sitting on the floor cross-legged with my arms like this, can somebody dial 911? Because something is terribly wrong with me. First of all, that's all I'm going to say. It ain't right. Somebody needs to fix it. Um, for me personally, when I think of like what's good, I'm so blessed to have a beautiful field behind my own property that I can walk. I will walk over or across, and just walking across the field is meditative. And I can take my walk and back in about 15 minutes, and it changes my entire perspective. And that I'm so blessed to be able to have a big, beautiful field just to go wander through. And when I'm out there, I'm walking slowly, I'm looking around, I'm trying to be in the present moment, and not really think about anything. But at the same time, I end up solving a lot of the world's problems when I'm standing in the middle of that field. And I really hope all you folks out there listen to what Mark was talking about. Meditation is done so many different ways. All right. Just sitting and listening to some good music. Listen to 3, 4 songs that you like, and just sit and listen to them and be present and enjoy the music. You will find those between the beat moments is where you're going to start solving the world's problems too. All right.
Absolutely. I
It's the,
completely agree with that.
you know, that we don't have to do all of these big ceremonial, ritual, magical things, you know. And in reality, it is the small magic that makes the big magic. And with that, we're going to move on. All right. Now, I'm curious. What is the biggest misconception people have about energy magic?
Ooh.
Like, what's the one thing that people say all the time and you want to say, no, no, not that?
It's a really good question. I would probably say,
I'm
mm, I've
sorry.
kind of got actually this more recently, and I'd probably say one of them is it's not necessarily a misconception. It's more, I keep getting this, how do I know if I'm doing it right? Or am I really doing this? Or is this in my head? And I guess the biggest misconception I can get out of that is that energy magic is what I'm doing. And this is actually more of a problem with general magic, not just energy magic. And the misconception is what I'm doing isn't real, or what I'm doing isn't effective, or what I'm doing isn't valid. And I definitely would say those are huge misconceptions. Um, Even if you're doing like the simplest exercise in the book, like one of the simplest exercises is like cycling your energy.
Mm,
And that's just something you can feel. And the more you do it, the more you'll feel it. You know, the more you feel that connection to the earth, and the more you feel that connection to, the heavens and spirit. So there's this kind of, how can I put this? I think there's this trap with magic, especially starting out, of just getting, then it comes from intimidation. It comes from, there's so many, I've got books behind me, there's so many books of magic, there's so many great teachers, there's so many people, there's so much out there, and it gets overwhelming.
mm,
And I think a lot of people get, and I know I can say from my experience starting out, it's very easy to get overwhelmed and not have faith in yourself, and letting that sense of being overwhelmed turning into this horrible pit of lack of self-confidence. And I really think the key here is that starting off small. You don't have to summon like, some angel or demon or something like right off the bat. You don't have to like do a spell to get like $1 million, you know. And I tried to speak of this in the book actually, in the sense that the book starts off really, really basic. Like literally the first exercise is the energy ball, which I've literally taught to kids at workshops. I have literally go to strangers in like hardware stores and teach them how to make an energy ball just because it's fun. And just to show people there is this thing called magic around. That's where I'm like my rabble rousing comes in. I'll literally go to random people and I'll say, "Oh, do you know what magic is?" And they're like, "What?" And I'm totally like some wizard out of a movie at this point. And I'm like, "Let me teach you about magic." And then I'll teach them how to do the energy ball. They're like, "Oh my God." It's like it's so to see people like light up makes my day. It's freaking priceless. And so the book goes from very simple to literally by the end of the book, you should be able to channel a deity. You should literally be able to like speak if a deity possess you and speak through you. Now that exercise is probably one of the few that you actually need help with that you should do with people. Most literally 95% of the exercise in the book are for solitaries or can be adapted for group work. But by the time that happens, you're doing that for a reason. But I do talk about evocation. I'm talking about techniques that we can work with angels or demons or spirits of the departed. I'm talking about how to go through trance journeys and go to the underworld. I give everyone these very advanced tools, but to get there you start off really small. And I think that's the best way for everyone to get over to build confidence and to get over this thing like, how do I know if it works or not? Well, if you start off small and master those basics until you have complete and utter faith that they're working, that's going to be a foundation that'll take you to the advanced stuff. And you'll honestly, if you do that, you'll be a better practitioner by the time you're my age than when I started out. I mean, honestly, like I'm looking
Well,
forward to being an obsolete fossil where people are like, man, I don't need that Energy Magic book anymore because it's like I'm so past that. And if I can just like help enough practitioners gain confidence and like learn some techniques, then you know what, my job's done. So and that'll make me happy. I'm looking forward like the old like martial arts movies or where the student surpasses the master. And like not no master, trust me. I'm still a student in a zillion ways.
well,
But I like the point that I look forward to that.
in today's world, it is so because of the information so readily available, it's tempting to flip to the back of the book and find out, well, I'm just going to invoke the deity. I don't need to know the first part of it. Um, and how important it is to have that foundation, to really take the time to start with the basics, start at the beginning of your journey and enjoy the journey, enjoy the process. When it's time for you to invoke a deity or an angel or a demon, whatever you're going for, you're going to be at a point where you're not even worried about it.
Exactly.
All right. When we get
So
to these points, if you're second guessing yourself, you're not ready. you
very true.
know, because for us within the house, we have quite a few of us work with lesser deities, dark entities, demons, and people, come up and start asking me questions, and I'm like, these are the questions of somebody who's not ready. Because if you were ready, you wouldn't be asking me these things. And to back it up and go back to your foundation work, go back to spending a year and a day. We often lose sight of the idea that there's time involved. This isn't a 6-week certificate course. And to allow yourself to have journeys with these things. I always recommend, a good journey is at least a year and a day. It's gone through all 4 seasons.
Very true.
And when we move, we go through in a year and a day of the first seasons where we're at. When we're in a relationship, we go through the honeymoon period, the first year and a day. When we mourn, we go through a year and a day of that transition of every season having that person not there anymore, or that fur baby for some of you out there.
Sure.
Any type of loss. And when we're talking like This is a book that I would almost say read it, take notes, and then go back and spend a year slowly working through it and journaling. I know some of y'all don't want to hear that. The evil word. Um, Journal. You just don't know how important those journals are going to become later on in life for you. All right. And really give yourself time to learn to acknowledge and work with energy. And like you said, doesn't matter what your tradition is, don't matter what, which way you're leaning, which way the wind's blowing, what left hand path, or if you're loving light, we're all working energy. Take the time to learn it, to understand it, to experience it. So when somebody comes to you, you're not telling them what you read, you're telling them what you did. All right. And that's where the powerful comes from. Sorry for that little tangent. I'm so sorry.
Oh, that was great. And it kind of reminds me that there's so many things I actually wish I wrote in the book. You know, um, for example, in the back of the book, so the book's divided into three parts. Like part one's basic, part two is advanced, and part three is it's kind of like a book of shadows of energy work. It's kind of like the energy
Mm-hmm.
magic bar. And I was talking about someone was talking about their relationship. And I said, hey, I've got this exercise where literally you and your partner opening each other's chakras and weaving energy between each other's chakras. And it's a very intimate and very moving experience. And made me realize there's so many little things I didn't put in there about, for example, just, connecting with people in magic and not just in relationships. Like one thing one of my friends and I would do, we would like touch each other's hands with energy just so we could get really good at focusing energy and say, okay, I can feel your hand and as if I'm touching your skin. Can you feel it? And like, oh yeah. And those are things that we would practice just to get ourselves sensitive to energy and like really hone our ability to focus, focus what we're doing. So there's like little things like that I wish I put in the book, or like me and quite a few friends of mine actually over the years, we would play energy ball. We'll get a ball, and part of the thing is you're learning how to focus not only your energy but the energy of other people and how that transforms back and forth. And it might start off like just a regular energy ball. Then like they might turn into like a snowball. I'm like, oh, that's weird. The energy feels cold when I get it. They're like, yeah, that was a snowball. Like, okay, that's cool. And then by the other person talking about what they did and what I felt, that really was helped me train myself on like, okay, how does my brain and my metaphysical senses, how do they coordinate? How do they connect? How do they talk to each other? And there's little things like that. So in either a revised edition or other books, I do really want to talk about that kind
So
of the things behind
there's an Energy Magick 2.
there. There's an Energy Magic 1.5 and there's an Energy Magic 2 and an Energy Magic 3 planned. So
That's unfortunately, I know, uh, uh, as an author as well, you reach a point where you look back at your book, and, oh, I should have put that in there. I think we all do it. You're not alone. Where you start thinking more beyond that, and that, oh,
absolutely.
I missed this, I missed that. You know, I know in my own books, I have those moments as well where I'm like, damn, why didn't I put that in there? You know,
Mhm.
but it wasn't meant to be. And,
Sure.
it was what you had in the moment. You had just talked about how energy connecting to us, to ourselves, connecting to others, and the
Yeah.
world around us. How has working with energy changed your own life or perspective?
Wow, that's actually a really good question. So I'd say first off, it's given me a greater appreciation of the world I live in. That's for sure. Because, for example, one thing in the book I talk about is cord cutting. And on the other side of that, I'm more aware of like how I'm connected energetically to people now. So that's something I'm very well aware of, and how my energy affects others, and vice versa. But also my ability just to sense energy just goes into all sorts of different things. So, for example, If I'm at my job and I feel the energy is kind of wonky or kind of off, I can purify the room with energy without doing anything. I mean, I might use my hands, or at this point, I really don't need to, and I can just kind of direct the energy with my thoughts. But you know, that's kind of cool that I can use magic in real world situations. And it just helps me appreciate things. Like if I'm going out in nature, I'll literally like hug a tree and feel the energy of that tree and just connect with it on an energetic level. And then I'm really through my energetic connection with like this tree or the land or even like forces of nature, like the wind and the water, having an energetic connection that is a springboard and a foundation to a deeper spiritual connection. So that's kind of where my magical practice turns into more of my spiritual understanding and my spiritual practice. But having that energy, that ability to sense energy and work with it, it's it's made the invisible more felt, and it's made my spiritual experiences that much richer and deeper.
Oh, good answer. I like that. All right. Um, what is the one thing you want your readers to take away from this book?
Hmm.
Or two
Probably the one.
things?
All right. Probably the one major thing, and it's kind of goes into like multiple things, is that you can do magic at any time, in any situation. And yeah, I mean that you can do magic at any time and that you can do magic. Um, I know for me, like when I started off with ceremonial magic, I was always at the whole thing of, did I do it right? Am I feeling what I'm supposed to feel? Am I getting like the images in my head? Am I connected to the ascended masters or the archangels or whatever, BS du jour that in every group I'm not trying to like knock ceremonial magic. I love ceremonial magic tremendously.
Oh,
And
I agree. I agree.
I
I'm
find
with
great
you. I'm
find
like
great
it.
power in it, but I
But
found
sometimes it is the spirit du jour, the spirit of the
it,
day, and you're just like, really?
whatever,
You
but
know?
so I'm going to do two things. So one thing is that you can do magic, and that not only does magic, can you do magic, but it doesn't have to be complex. That you can do simple acts of magic. If someone's casting like negative energy at me, I'll literally just like do a mudra of like catching that energy from the evil and dispersing it. Instead of like, oh, I'm carrying someone's negative energy with me all day, and I've had such a bad day because of the energy. No, it's like I'll address that and I'll disperse that energy and tackle it and banish it just like that. So that's one thing. You can do magic. You can do magic all the time, and it's really simple. Um, there's another thing I wanted to say. Dang ADHD, it really does get me sometimes, especially in these situations. Um, I guess the other thing is that I don't know. I lost it. It'll probably come back to me. So I did say that my one thing. I was gonna go crazy with like second thing. I guess I'll think about it later or some other talk we'll have or something. So
I just like I really enjoyed the book. The thing that I really liked about your book was the beginning where it was the basics, because it made me realize that we all need to go back and reread the basics again.
Mhm.
All right. Sometimes I get lost in my high end dissertations, or I'm over in history somewhere reading something out of the 1900s and everything. And the first section of your book for me was very much a refresher, a reaffirmment, a reminder. And that even as, old practitioners, advanced practitioners, whatever you want to call us, folks have been at the party for a while.
Sure.
Sometimes we need to go back and read those again. We need to go back and be reminded of it.
Yes.
And that, don't be thinking that, oh, I don't need to read the beginning part. I'm advanced. I'm thinking, really, that's more reason for you to read the beginning part
Mhm.
because it's probably been a while.
Absolutely. I started reading a basic tarot book not too long ago, and a friend of mine was like, "What?" Like, and I'll give you some background. I've been a pro tarot reader for like 20 years. Okay, I've been literally been doing readings for in the public for 20 years, and I realized I was talking with a friend of mine about card meanings. I said, "Oh, this card means this to me," and they're like, "Oh, that card means something different to me." And I said, "Oh, that's weird." And I went back and their understanding of the card was more of a book definition than what my definition was off of like 2 decades of readings and seeing how that card pops up in different people's lives. And I realized that while my experience really helps me, it also kind of hindered me because I was moving a little too far away for this one specific card, what the knowledge and what the energy of the card really was. I really needed to recalibrate. So speaking to your point, I'll go ahead and I actually have some stupid basic books on which, I mean, they're not stupid, but really basic. I didn't mean to be like say it like
What
that.
is it?
But I have
The
some,
For
like,
Dummies book?
yeah, I don't have any the dummy for dummies books, but they're pretty close. And I won't name the authors obviously at this point because I've just embarrassed myself. But I'll read some really basic books for a simple reason, like, hey, have I gone too far from what I'm actually practicing and what I'm trying to accomplish? Have I gotten too lost in my own practice that I'm not
Yeah.
being objective? So I like to recalibrate. And there's a couple of books I have that for my personal life, like Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning, Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, and a couple other books that mean a lot to me personally, like the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius. I'll read like these books like on a regular basis over and over and over again, just because I know these books help me shape who I am, and I need to recalibrate who I am sometimes.
I love that phraseology. That's it, that we need to recalibrate. Because, I mean, we often think of shadows and traumas as something that happened to us a while ago, but the reality is every year we get new ones. Um, and in the process of all of that and everything going on, you do need to recalibrate and go back to why you're doing it in the first place.
Exactly.
Where's your passion, your love? You know, I mean, obviously we do magic because it feels good.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's such a pure statement. But when we go out in the big world, that statement goes away. And then we get in community and that statement goes away. And then, and
Yeah.
everything, and having to again recalibrate, go back to
Mhm.
self. And again, I loved the first part of your book for that, where I was sitting there, I was very engaged with it. And I was just reading it. And a lot of it was like, oh, yeah, that I've got to remember. I haven't done that. I hadn't remembered that in years, is what I was thinking. And
No,
it
I hear
was,
you.
you get lost in your day to day grind.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And,
And
oh,
that and go ahead.
go ahead.
I was going to say magical growth and magical and learning magic is not a straight path. It's a spiral. So there's something I kind of want to share real quick that I'm working on. It's going to be in another book. It didn't make it towards Energy Magic. But I've looked at like my own spiritual journey and that of a magical practitioner and that of others. And I realized that there's three gates of magic. There's three gates that we all go through. And the first gate is that of initiation. And there where we're in the mundane world, we're in the normal world, and then we realize, oh my goodness, there's this thing called magic, and you can do spells and you can talk to spirits and angels are real. And there's this whole thing of like, oh my God, there's this whole world. It's like, like the fantasy novel where like there's like the orphan kid who's like, oh, I'm there's this world of magic and I'm a wizard now. So that sort of thing. So the first gate is initiation, and the pathway through that gate is wonder, just like having this sense of wonder at this new world. And that sense of wonder carries you through that gate of initiation. Now, the second gate is the gate of identity. Once you're in that world, it's figuring out what you like, what tools you think you want to study, what magical schools, what spiritualities, what deities, what all this stuff. Like there's all this stuff to choose from. What do you choose? What do you decide to get good at? And the pathway through the gate of identity is confidence. And where you pick up stuff, you learn what works and what doesn't work, and you become more sure of yourself. And going through that gate of identity and gaining self-confidence, you become a better person. And that translates into all avenues of your life. Now, the third gate is the most difficult gate, of course, because it's further along the path. And this is the gate of ego. This is where most practitioners will stop, whether they realize it or not. And what the gate of ego is very simple to get is it's a very easy thing to get stuck in because once you've read all these books, once you've mastered all these techniques, once you can talk to the dead and you can like feel the energy of stones and you can cast magic for healing or not so healing things. Once you have like all these abilities and you like feel, you're feeling yourself, you know, there's an easy trap to think that I'm very powerful, that I can do anything, that magic is this cure all for all the problems in the world. And it's not. It's not. I wish it was. Honestly, I swear to the gods, if I could just like put myself in a cave and study magic on how to cure cancer with the touch of my hand, I'd do it in a heartbeat. I really would. But there's a trap there. And the trap is thinking that you're the only practitioner, that you're the only one who's special, that you're the only one that does this stuff. We're all special. We all have a story. We all have a note in the universal opera of life. So the pathway out of the gate of ego is that of service. That you realize that you're connected to a world, that your magical gifts, no matter how awesome you think they have to be done in service to growth and evolution and fighting ignorance and bringing the light of reason and love and understanding to the world. But these tools are given to us to help each other. And if you can make it out of that gate of ego, and you're doing something really awesome. Okay. Now, granted, remember I said before a little while ago, this isn't a linear path, it's a spiral. So once you get past the gate of ego, then it's like, oh, wow, I'm not fooling myself anymore. Maybe I can pick up a different technique, or I can pick up a different tool, or maybe I don't know everything. Maybe I want to learn something that's outside of my wheelhouse and be a different practitioner a little bit, and that's okay. Then you go through that sense of awe and learning new stuff. You come to that sense of that gate of identity again, and like, okay, this tool is said as part of who I am, and it's brought out something inside of me to the outside world that I didn't know existed, and I know more about myself from studying this new thing. And that's really freaking cool when you learn more about yourself. I mean, how cool is that? And then,
I
of course, you're going to
love
go back to that gate of
this.
ego.
It makes
Yeah,
so much sense. Um, it- yeah, I'm just sitting here, I'm slowly putting in my brain, and I'm like, this is just so true. We when we had spoken off camera, I had made the statement that true power doesn't exist until we give it away. And that is part of letting go of the ego of it, letting go of your sense of ego. But also, when we're talking ego, which is in other interesting magical beings, it's you can still have pride in what you're doing. All
of
right.
course.
Um, a lot of times we want to think of, the ego means that I can't have pride or I have to be very humble. No, it doesn't.
Right.
All right. The ego is wonderfully complex. But what we're really talking about is when you feel superior in any way to any other person or situation. Somehow you've decided you're a little better than that, your moral compass, your ethical guide is the one we all should follow. All right. That's ego.
Absolutely.
And not giving space to other folks to have their way of doing it and understanding that it's just as valid. It's their stuff. It has nothing to do with you. Um, and it's a hard road. I think we all have times where we have to check our ego at the door.
Absolutely.
It's ongoing. It's not something that I go take a mystical, magical shower that says, ooh, I will have ego no more, ego no more. And that I don't ever have to worry about it again.
No, and it's a constant thing. That's why I said also it's in a spiral. I mean, and these are things there are transitions along the path and things to look for, but it's also kind of like it's an ongoing thing, having awe at what you do is like, wow, that's really cool, and or what they're doing, that's really cool. Learning new stuff, checking your ego, making sure you're doing it for the right purposes. I mean, these are all things that we have to do constantly. We constantly are walking the path. There's little spirals and there's big spirals, and it gets really complex. But you know what? That complexity is what makes it really fun. I mean, oh, that's one thing I wanted to ask and add on to another question. Magic should be fun. If you should enjoy it. There should be joy in magic. If you can't laugh at yourself once in a while when you've like said the wrong thing in Hebrew at the ritual, or you did the wrong correspondence, or you faced the wrong way, or didn't know where east was, if you didn't do something silly and laugh at it, you're doing something wrong. If
All
you're
I'm
not
gonna
having
say is,
fun,
I
you're
do
doing
want,
something.
I want to say you ain't a real witch unless you've stood in the West and called the South, and then went out the following month and did it again.
No,
All right, where I cannot
true.
tell you how many times over the course of years we've had standing a whole coven of witches, and then somebody turns to the west and starts invoking the north, and we all just go along with it.
Exactly.
Where the whole coven doesn't know which way to go. And
Yeah.
what did we do? We laughed.
Yeah, you gotta laugh.
We laughed about it. We embraced it. And that was the way that it was supposed to be called that night. You know,
Exactly.
there was no we messed up. There was no, oh, we got to go do it right. No, we did it the way we needed to do it that evening. We all got a good chuckle and a laugh at it, and it becomes a story that bonds us, where it's part of your magic. Your imperfections are what create the perfect moments.
Exactly.
And I do that. A lot of folks get caught up on doing it the right way,
Right.
and this illusion of this, y'all, that's bullshit. All right. There ain't no right way, or else we'd
Exactly.
all have one book. We'd all
Yeah.
just get one book, it'd be on our bookshelves, it'd be the right way to do magic.
I wish.
Right. And like,
I'd save so much money if I was just one book to do everything.
but that's what you were talking earlier, the complexity, the beauty of the complexity is there's so many ways to do it. And it is a little overwhelming for new folks where you're like, what am I supposed to do? And you feel like you have to go read this big stack of books or something. And it's about picking out a couple of books that you're interested in, that you sound good to you, that are part of your passion of magic, whatever that is, and then going out and doing it. I think the biggest thing I
Exactly.
see with the generation, with y'all young folks, all right, is don't put those books down and go out and do it. We can read about dancing around the bonfire under a full moon, and a lot of different authors can tell us all their experiences. But when are you going to have your experience?
Exactly.
You
Exactly.
know, and back to what I like throughout your book is there are exercises
Thanks.
to put it in the real world, all right, to take it out of theory and to put it into real world use. And like I was saying, take your time going through the book and do the
Yeah.
different exercises and enjoy it and see how those you can incorporate it into the magic that you're doing now. How it's going to enhance what you're doing right now, learning to be more aware of the energy around you. And you can learn. Mark had talked earlier about learning how to walk into a room and raise the room up, because Mark's one of the good guys. I'm a dark witch, so I'm gonna walk in a room and I'm gonna be like, and we're gonna bring it down, bitch. And boom, crash the party. And I'm like, good job, good job. I didn't have to say anything. On everything has both sides to it. No, I do not crash parties. Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. Where I'm like, I try to be a good witch, but then I have moments of just utter deviant come across me. And um, just learning, once you start learning to swirl energy, it becomes very effortless. And if
Oh, yeah.
anything, for you do it for a while, you have to learn how to close it down more so than in the beginning. You work very hard to open it up. All right. And once you get it open, you're having fun at that point. You're over there, you're just sitting there working a candle and you're like, it's vibing. And if you
Oh,
want
yeah.
to do something fun, sit there and work energy with a candle, and then have a friend of yours put it in their hand and ask them what was the intention of the candle.
Exactly.
All right. It
Yes.
gets freaky really quick, is all I'm gonna say.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And that after they take the candle out of their palm, they can still feel the candle there.
Yeah.
All right. Fun things to do at your next slumber party. you know, uh, and there's so many ways you can learn to really work with energy mindfully to enhance your practice. It's already in your practice. Now it's being aware of it. And with that, Mark, again, do you want to give us any closing um, earth shattering wisdom? No pressure.
Shattering wisdom. No pressure. Um, I will actually. So this is a slight shameless plug. So I started a nonprofit and it's still getting off the ground. It's actually a lot of work trying to get your own nonprofit going, believe it or not. Who would have thunk? So my nonprofit is
Yes.
created yeah, I have a nonprofit that, it's philanthropic in a lot of ways, but it's also like to create resources and infrastructure for the magical, pagan, witchcraft, occult communities. Okay. So the name of it is the Invisible College. And the reason it's called the Invisible College is because when we look at videos, when we have conversations, when we're in a bookstore and we see the right book, it's that we're on these spiritual journeys and we're in this invisible school. We're in this invisible college of magic where we're learning constantly. Now, here's a dirty little secret that there's a ton of practitioners that are departed. There's a ton. There's more dead practitioners than alive ones, I would argue very strongly. As such,
Yeah.
if you go to a bookstore and your eyes are drawn to a random book, if you like see someone sporting a pentacle and that popped out of their shirt, and you didn't know they were a witch. These are these random moments that the alumni of the Invisible College, that these departed practitioners, more than likely guiding us, that we do have help when we need it, more so than you'd ever realize. And that when we pass, we're going to help others as well in this constant chain of helping other practitioners to advance magic, to help bring the light of reason and love to the world, and to evolve our species. We have a responsibility. And as such, we also have help with that. And the ascended masters that, people in the Golden Dawn, and I'm a Golden Dawn initiate, they say these ascended masters have come given you your magical name. Those ascended masters are no strange than the faces in the mirror or the pictures of your ancestors. We will be ancestors. And all these people who have written books who have passed on, they're still here, one way or another, guiding us. So there are these teachers, these professors of the invisible college that are there to help us. And there's this great continuity of magical practitioners that when you start, when you are initiated, and I don't mean formally into a group, I mean when you cross that threshold from the mundane world to the magical, you are entering the largest and greatest magical fraternity that's ever existed. And there will always be hope for you.
All right, I'm like, yes, yes, yes. um, that's that is such a brilliant way to look at it. I love that. I really do. That, I know within the house, part of our creating sacred space is that we call to the witches of the past who bid us well. Because like what you're saying, we know that we've got guides out there that are wanting to see us succeed. The
Absolutely.
witches of the past, they want to see the magic going forward. They want to be part of that. And that is so true. And I know I personally during the season of the dead this past year, I had taken like I think Doreen Valente's book, and then I took Raymond's book, Raymond Buckland's book. And I'm thinking I had a couple of other authors, some which they're older, they've done past, but I
Sure.
put them on my my altar for the dead
Thanks.
and set up this little space for all of the magical folk of the past. And how important it is that we recognize them, we know who they are. If it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have a lot of the things that we do now in our
Absolutely.
community. Uh,
Absolutely.
it's yeah, Doreen Valente, not only was she Wiccan,
Right.
was so much more than that. That was one season in her magical journey.
Yeah.
And that she always was so willing to sit and talk with someone, to partake knowledge, that she wanted to see the community do well. Her last group was the Somerset Coven, and everybody, just spoke how highly of a person that she was. I don't think she ever knew that she was Doreen Valente.
Right.
From what I understand with some folks that actually did know her and had conversations, was, as far as she was concerned, she was just a witch who was showing up to the meeting.
Yeah.
But she was always so willing and she always wanted to see the next generation. And so, I put her book on my altar because, say their names out loud. This is a
Absolutely.
person who inspired so many of us, even us in the folk magic tradition. Um, Later on, when she was the Somerset Coven, is a folk witch, traditional witchcraft coven, um, where she was seeing that return to the roots, return to the simple things, get out of the ceremony of it. Well, Gardner loved a good ceremony more than
Oh,
anything
absolutely.
else. I mean, you got to give it up. He did do some good ceremonies. I have some of his rituals are really cool.
Great.
I sometimes feel like folks are, feel like they got to, oh, he was this, this, and this. And it was like, you're right.
Right.
He was all of this,
Absolutely.
and this. But guess what? He also was this, and this too.
Exactly.
All right. Back to complexity. And, yeah, he had some dumb shit beliefs, but he also had some great magic. And he's allowed to have both. And to look back on our folks, we were talking about some of our books, especially books out of I think the 80s was a very bad decade for magic books. Um, Not to disparage those people, not
Sure.
to think that that book's bad. When it was written with the information that was available at that time. It was written within the norms of society and the norms of the magic community at that time.
Hmm.
And that there's
Very
still
much so.
good information in it, you know. Well, I sometimes people are too quick with, people ask me, oh, what's a bad book? And I'm like, I don't know what a bad book is. I know some
Right.
books have more information in them than others for me. And you may read those books and get something completely different. Um,
Absolutely.
every book has the potential to drop a nugget of wisdom.
I completely
Some
agree with you
drop more than others.
there. It's very generous. Huh?
You know, I think they're all good. And then you look back into like our 70s and 60s. I actually have a collection of occult books out of the 60s and 70s when
Nice.
they were doing the pocket soft
Mhm,
books
mhm.
on occultism.
I have a couple of those myself.
We'll have to get together and go through. I have a whole collection of them. I've been slowly
That's
collecting them for the past 30 years.
that's fun.
Oh, they fascinate me for some reason. I can't even begin, you know. And that's a little personal note. And with that said, witches and other interesting magical beings, we are going to close this chat down. I hope you enjoyed it. If you look down in the description box, you will see where you can get in touch with Mark directly. Uh, and if you have any questions or anything else, reach out to him. Of course, I'm going to tell you to hit the like, hit the subscribe, and leave a comment below. It's always greatly appreciated. And y'all know it never changes, it's always the same. Have a bright, blessed day. Get out there, fly those brooms. And as always, amen, blessed be, ashe, and a bobo.